Right, going live. I guess we're live. Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening. I'm Christos, a senior code contributor program manager, and with me I have Steve, backend engineer for the running program. We are on the beginning, let's say, of our hackathon here. It's great to have you all with us. Welcome, welcome. Just some logistics reminder. Let me just briefly share my screen. Can you see my screen? It has a weird, let me change the orientation of the screen, the size of the screen. Great. So just a quick reminder of the code of conduct. We take the, here at GitLab, we take the safe and inclusivity of our events seriously. So just a brief reminder that all of the events that we run are under the community code of conduct that can be found on the link here on the slide deck. It's really important for us to feel, for everyone to feel safe and inclusive, and we won't tolerate any inappropriate behaviors. So please, if you have or face one, or if you notice one, please reach out to us at contact@gitlab.com. We keep an eye on all our communication channels, on merge requests, on the channels as well. So yeah, but if we miss something or if you see something, just let us know. Earlier today, we began with our Hackathon Kickoff. It was just a brief introduction of the hackathon, how the day is going to go, the 2 days are going to go. This is the first of the 5 sessions, the rest of the 5 sections that we have scheduled for today and tomorrow. It's the runner office hour. On the hackathon page, you can find more information about the hackathon. For example, the number of the merge requests that have already been submitted, which are 25. Yay, 27, sorry. This is amazing. If you're new at GitLab and to the product as well, feel free to check out the contribute page. The contribute page consists a bunch of information of how to contribute, specifically about development, which is the hackathon about. It has all the necessary information about finding issues and also setting up your development environment. Special highlight in the new addition, which is the Git pod. We recently added a new section about how to set up your development environment with Git pod, which makes you set up the environment really easily and really fast. And yeah, also back to the hackathon page, you can find the prizes as well for your contributions and the sessions for the tutorials. You can find, if you click on the times, you can find your local time, Zoom link to join, and also the names and information of the speakers. If you need any help, we have the contributors Gitter room. It's a Gitter channel where all the community members, the core team within GitLab, and also GitLab members are there. So we can provide real-time support in case that you need anything. It's also bridged with GitLab's internal Slack rooms. Yeah. So there is also the opportunity for other members to join whenever needed. So yeah, welcome. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and I will pass it over to Steve.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that kind introduction. So these office hours are usually very, very free form from our end. It will be either answering or answering questions from the community. I see some people already joined our call, so if they have any questions or anything they want to discuss, this is the time to do it. We can discuss issues, merge requests, or anything like that. And then if we still have time and there are no answers, no questions anymore, I will choose some merge requests that are opened by the wider community, and I'll do some live code review. The point for that is mostly to show the other side of what a code review looks like from a maintainer perspective. So there's no like barrier between the community contributor and us, and it's a bit more transparent on what goes on into reviewing code review. So I see 3 people in the Zoom call. Do you have any questions or merge requests that you want me to review at the moment? Feel free to speak up.
Akita, Benson, or Umar, do you have any questions or any requests, any merge requests that you would be interested in exploring? Oh, there's a comment from Benson. Wanted to learn more about the merge process.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, Benson, is there anything specific that you're looking at the merge process, or just the code review in general, or like how to open up a merge request with GitLab Runner, for example? Okay, code review in general. So if there isn't any other questions, I can get started with one of them that I have in mind, and we'll go from there. When I'm doing code review, feel free to jump in at any point in time, ask questions, or like say something else. So I do not mind. So let me share my screen then, and we can get started. So the merge request I had in mind is merge request 2582. And this one is mostly a follow-up merge request that we had from the same community contributor, where this is talking about the Kubernetes executor. So if you're not familiar, GitLab Runner supports multiple executions infrastructure. So one of them is Docker, another one is Kubernetes. So we run your CI job inside of Kubernetes cluster. And one of the things that we've been working on at the moment is adding support for host aliases. So if you are not familiar, GitLab CI supports services. So imagine that your application needs access to a database, right? That means that the job that is running your test that is connecting to the database is starting services, right? So it's starting, for example, a Postgres database, a MySQL database, whatever. And then your tests need to communicate with this database, right, over the network. Now, I won't go into too much technical details, but basically we need to have, there is these keywords, the alias keywords, where you can specify, give me a second to find a good example on this one.
Can you also please zoom in a bit more? I'm checking the YouTube live, and apparently the quality is not that great. So if you can just zoom a bit, it will be really helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So you can specify aliases, right? You can either communicate with the Postgres via my Postgres address or the DB Postgres, right? It is mostly like a convenience sake. And there's also host aliases. So I'm not sure if you ever tried to modify your etc host directory. You might point a certain IP address to a domain manually. So it's like an internal DNS server. And it's very, very useful for like internal applications and so on and so forth. So we did this in a previous merge request. But when we were doing this, we found an issue where we were always adding the localhost IP address. So it's 12.0.01 there all the time, no matter if you had services defined in your GitLab CI YAML file or not, which is, it wasn't causing any problems, but it shouldn't be there because one, it might cause problems in the future, and two, it's like somewhat of an unexpected behavior, right? So the main goal here is to remove, to only add this host alias inside of etc hosts when we actually needed to. And I'll show you an example of what we're trying to solve here. So I have a simple job that is going to run a sleep command, right? And I have a GitLab runner instance here. So let me start it from scratch.
Can you please paste the merge request link here to the chat maybe, so I can distribute it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Let me do that. So that is the merge request URL. Now, so I started the runner locally. This is just the development. I have the GitLab runner code base checked out locally, and I can just run the main Go binary main file. And now I can see that I have 0 pods at the moment running. I will start the job. So as soon as I will start the job, a new pod will be created inside of my Kubernetes cluster, and we can inspect some things from it, right? So I have a pod running, and I'm gonna do cat etc hosts. And you can see entries added by host aliases. This is a Kubernetes feature. And then we're just saying port 127.001, right? Which is not what we want. We only want to add this when we actually need it, right? And this is how it works when we have a service defined. So let me go here. And let me start a pipeline that has a service so we see how it actually works. I'll give it a sleep of 2 minutes. Now that it's running, I should see another pod, and it's still container creating. Let's give it a sec. So it's just pulling the images here. That's why it's taking a bit longer. So it's running, and I'm just gonna cat the etc host files again, and I should see the following. So it added the local host and the host aliases, right? So when you ping DB, it will ping the local host, and Kubernetes will route everything for you to the database service, right? So to reiterate, we don't want to add this when we don't have any services or we don't need it at all, right? This is what this community contribution is trying to achieve, and we'll take a look at it together. So you saw me that I got all the context. I tried it manually, reproducing it manually, and this is like one of the first steps I do when I do a code review, just because I want to understand what the problem is and where the problem relies before actually reviewing the code. Because if I'm just reviewing code and I don't really know what the problem is, it's mostly doing reviewing of the changes instead of actual code review of what we need to do to achieve this problem, right? So this is touching 2 files here. So host aliases and host aliases test. So there's already like a good indication that we're both modifying application logic and we're adding tests to test to actually check the application logic is valid. So let me open up the file in my editor as well, so we get a better understanding. And we're modifying mostly, I think, the create service host alias. So let's go there. And we have, this is what we have on the master branch at the moment. So just a quick rundown. Actually, I won't run through it manually, just because it's a lot of context driven. So I'll check the branch locally. So we have a neat git alias where I do git mr origin and then the ID of the merge request on the actual branch. And this one will actually check out that merge request into my local environment. And we can see that changes are here. So let's start looking at the diff, what changed here, and then we'll test it out as well. So host aliases, before we always used to have the local host alias here, and probably this is where the issue was happening, right? We were just defaulting to the local host alias and like then just appending to it whenever we need to, which is not what we want. We only want to append it or add it when we actually need it, right? So we're creating an empty slice here, and then here we are host aliases, host name, and alias. So where is this host name being defined and where is this alias being defined? Let me check it out here. So host name, okay, yeah, host names, it's just appending to it, yeah, of course. And then it's adding the alias. So this one is for services and host names. And then it's literally just appending to the host names when we actually need it. If it's valid for, there's a specification for DNS, it's called 1123. We validate it, and then if it's valid, we add the alias and the service alias as well. And then we do it at the bottom here. If we have any aliases, so if length hostname, if we don't have any hostname, just return and return nothing, right? So we're not returning the local host anymore. And then we're returning the default one here, which seems to be what we need, right? So let's test it out now. So I'm running it on my environment. And let's run a new pipeline. Here with that, if we check our cluster, we should have a pod running. Check the host files here. And we can see that we no longer have the empty host aliases, which is what we want, right? Now, I think this check is fine, but give me a second if I, yeah, it seems fine, right? So we're just checking if there's no host name. If there's no host name, just return early, right? Which is what we want here. So this is good. And now let's move to the next file, and this is where we're actually adding tests. So no hostname aliases when service only with ports. So first, before doing that, actually, let's check where it's adding it, because sometimes everyone, even me, I do it. Like we end up adding tests to cases to test where it's not, it doesn't really belong to. So this is on line 76. And this one's here. So this is for the test create host aliases. Okay, perfect. So we're creating a no host aliases only with ports. Okay. So this is adding a case where there is a service defined, but it has a port defined. And this is for the check in this one. So we go to host aliases. We're checking if this, the services and ports. Now the ports are not really useful for the user. These are mostly for web IDE settings. So GitLab itself is a web IDE, and then you can define certain services. So for example, you can have file syncing and so on and so forth. I will not go into details into that one, but if it does not have, if it has a port, we don't want an alias to it, basically. So this is what it's checking here. We're still defining a service, but we're defining a port for it. And we want to make sure that there are no host aliases, right? And then we're also adding another one here, host aliases with no services. So the user specifies their own host aliases inside of their config.toml file, but it didn't define any services, right? So we only expect this one. So I see two improvements that we can make. So the first one would be we're not really, like when I'm just looking at this, if I'm just skimming through this, I'm not really seeing what is the expected result, right? Now, if you're familiar with Go, if you don't define a variable, if you don't define a value to the variable, it will use the 0 value. And in this case, for a slice, it is an empty slice always. So since we never defined it, it was asserting to an empty slice. So if we look at the usage of expected host alias here, we're just checking that the host alias we got from create host aliases and the expected one are the same. So basically we're doing an equality check, right? So I think it's good to be explicit here in this case, just because if I'm just reading through the test cases, I'm saying, okay, if there's only a service defined with a port, I expect no host aliases, right? So instead of not having it, it's a bit, you have to know what's going on in the test. So that is one suggestion I will suggest right now. So let me write that quickly. And then I also usually like to apply suggestions or show the git diff of it. So I somewhat do the change for the user, but also I'm very clear of what I'm expecting or what I think it should look like, just so it prevents a lot of back and forth and things like that. And sometimes it's easier to explain code with code instead of just trying to explain it in English, right? So I'll do this, and then the community contributor will see this one, and either they agree or disagree, and then we'll have a discussion. Now, this one, host aliases with no service. I have a feeling we're already somewhat testing this somewhere else. So let's look at all the test cases that we have. We have aliases, normal services defined, and we're getting these aliases. We have a service and a service with a port, and we're getting this. Host aliases with no service, and host aliases with service. What else? Let's see all of these. Okay. So one other test we can have is no services or aliases defined, right? So what if we just do this? So services is empty, and host aliases is empty as well, right? So if both of these empty, we expect the expected services to be empty as well. So if we run this specific case, it should work. And it's not working because there is something actually in it. Interesting. So let me check that for a second. Wonder why that's happening, to be honest. So let's debug it. Oh, it's returning around. That is why I think. Let me check if that's the case. Yeah. And it's good that we tested it, because as soon as I see nil, I start thinking, oh, will this cause a panic somewhere in Go? Because if we try to reference something that is nil, it might cause a panic. So let me check if that would be the case, right? So let me check for everything that is calling create host aliases. And we're calling it in the test, and we're calling it in the Kubernetes executor called get host aliases. And host aliases is being passed to prepared pod config. And let's see where this host aliases is being used. It's being used to construct the API request to the Kubernetes executor. So this should be fine. That is fine, actually. So that is expected. So here we're being super explicit, right? If no services are defined and no aliases are defined, we're gonna end up returning an now. I'll add it here. Now, one word scenario I see is like here we're returning an empty slice, and here we're returning a null, right? Is that something that we should be bothered about or not? At the moment, I'm not sure. This is where I usually just either think about it a bit, like, I don't know, try to make a decision within an hour or so, or like spend some time thinking about it just to see if it's actually a good idea or not. Or try to fix it and see if that's something that we should do. So let's see why it's returning a null here. So if we go to host aliases, And let's add a debug breakpoint here and run to and debug this specific test case. So we're going to create host aliases, create service aliases. And here we got a nil. All host aliases. This is nil, so we won't go into it. And host aliases is 0. So it will just append nothing to it, and all host aliases is still nil. And this is because when we use var here, it's using the nil value here. But if we, for example, change this into host aliases and do something like this, so we're defining an empty struct, we'll see something differently, right? So if we just run this test like this, we'll see that then this will work instead of nil. And yeah, but if you look at my editor, it started yelling at me a bit, and it's called empty slice declaration for via literal. Now, I'll apply the hint. It's basically doing this. Now, I won't go into detail why this needs to be done this way, but what I will do is I will give you a link that explains this. This is like an internal detail about Go. If we go on the wiki and look at the code review comments, and looked at where is it? No, it's slice, not struct. Declaring empty slices here. So I'll leave this in the chat. And basically, sometimes, like for example, when we're encoding JSON, which in this case we actually are, right? We have to remember that GitLab Runner is talking to Kubernetes over the API, and the API is written in JSON. It's a JSON API, so we send a JSON, it gives us JSON. And when we're declaring an empty slice, we should always prefer the var keyword instead of this one, since it's empty, it creates a little slice instead. There's less memory allocation and so on and so forth, things like that. So in this case, that is fine. Now, so this is what we want. Now, what I'm curious about is if we can get this to nil as well. Like, why is this return? Actually, this should be nil as well. Let me check. Yeah, I was wrong here. So, and these are like normal rabbit holes I end up going down to when doing code reviews, just because I'd like to understand the problem and why things are going a certain direction, just so sometimes it helps me uncover other problems we have with the code base, or helps me find an issue with the change request. So this should be nil. So let me update my suggestion here. So it is nil. And I think that, and I need to add a suggestion to add a new test case. that quickly. Again, I'm showing the Git dev, so it's super explicit to what I'm thinking we should do. And now it's up to the contributor to say, okay, I'm just going to copy paste the code, or I'm just implement something differently because I can think of something differently, right? And that's like the beautiful thing about code review. Like you're more collaborating to achieve one goal instead of like, hey, I'm telling you what to do and things like that. So it's always good to think of code review as pairing two works on something together instead of like, I did the work, now you review the work, and I go back to my corner to satisfy your comments. So I always enjoy thinking of code reviews like that. So I'll add this to the review, and that is all for this one. So what I like to do is also run manual QA, right? And I like to document what I run as a manual QA. As leaving a breadcrumb for myself. So if I come later, either tomorrow or Friday when the community contributor submitted the changes I was asking for or suggested, I'll come back here, copy paste what steps I ran, and it would be much quicker, right? So no services defined. For example, run following CI is disappear. I'll just copy paste the CI one. Are there any questions at the moment, or like suggestions or feedback that you'd like to share? Okay. I will not write the manual QA just because it's very, very boring to see me type on the screen. So I'll do that later today myself. But let me submit the review and let the other person know that I reviewed it and you can take action on it. So to reiterate, just 2 comments, mostly tests, because the implementation itself looks like what we need. And that's pretty much it for this one. Not sure how we're doing on time. Let me check. We have, I think we're right on time, or do we have 10 minutes left, Christos?
It depends on whether you want to use. We have 10 minutes left, but if you want to use them or not, it's up to you. I also am monitoring the Git there. There are no questions there, neither on YouTube.
Yeah, I can do one more quick review on another one.
Perfect.
So if we look at the open office hour one, we will see that we have this one from Fabio. So this is quite interesting. So previously we were testing we wanted to test about like long characters, right? And we were using a really long project ID to make sure that it is being concatenated properly. Actually, it's being concatenated properly, like this one, right? But if we look at this issue, this task is actually failing on 32-bit systems. Now we do support 32-bit, but we do not run our CI on 32-bit systems, right? And it's causing overflow into overflows because this number is too big for 32-bit systems. Luckily, this was only in tests. It was never in production application, so it was still running. The Debian folks are kind enough to run all their tests on 32-bit and 64-bit, and they flagged it for us. And this contribution is pretty much removing the test. And I agree with this because this is such an edge case that that is longer than 63 characters. Project ID is the ID of the project inside of the database that is sent to us, and it's a really short chance, a small chance that sorry, that was English translation problem. A really short chance, slight chance that this will happen, right? So I think I'm fine removing this task because it does not really add any value. So I think I'm just gonna merge it as this. Let's double check the test cases to see if I'm missing something. So if we go to this merge request, let me open that file. And that is for line 1495. And we have this basically testing the project unique name, right? It's just making sure that we get the expected value and that is unique for that specific project. So, and let's check. So that the pipeline is failing. So let's see if that is related to this change or not. No, this one is a flaky pipeline. So I'm not sure if I can rebase. No, I cannot rebase it. So what I will ask the contributor is to rebase this merge request, so then we can just merge it in. I like to merge something in when it has a green pipeline. So if you're opening up a community contribution, like this would be one of your first checklist, right? Make sure that the pipeline is green before you send it over to a review. It's completely fine if you don't. Sometimes tests fail and you do not understand why it's failing, and that's why we're here to help. So I'll let Fabio know.
What is the number of this issue? Is it 27294?
It's 2597. So I'll send it on the chat.
Great, thank you.
So this, I sent it on the chat as well.
Cheers.
And that's it. So these are small things that we have to go through. Like, it's a small change. I wouldn't say it's a breaking change for production or anything like that, but this is still something we really, really wanted to do. And I really appreciate people just spending their own time doing this. So I really enjoy reviewing these, and I'm really, really thankful for all the community work on this kind of stuff, because this is what makes a project very healthy. dealing with technical debt, dealing with these small edge cases. So we fix them up and make sure everything is working as expected. So yeah, that's it for me, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. I have a question. Where can people find some issues, sort of easy issues to begin with, or yeah?
Yeah, I would say we follow the same methodology as the main GitLab project. So if I share my screen, I don't have a link handy to what the official guidelines say. So Christos, you might be able to find that. But like, if you look at our issue tracker here, and if you label by accepting merge requests, I would say most of them are accepting merge requests. So you can look at this one. I'm pretty sure we also have.
Yeah, I was primarily talking about the GitLab Runner project.
Yeah, this is on the GitLab Runner URL. So we have our own issue tracker. Let me zoom in a bit more. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
So this is under the GitLab Runner project, and these are all our issues for GitLab Runner.
Perfect.
If you have any suggestions or ideas or things you want to improve or things that are bothering you, feel free to open an issue. You can ping us directly. My username is Steve AWZ. So you can easily ping me, and like I'll either direct it to someone else, or we'll discuss it together on like if this issue is something that we want to solve or not. Sometimes we get merge requests without an issue, and that is completely fine. We just need we need to discuss on the problem, and if we want to solve the problem, and how we're going to solve it. And if we're just opening up a merge request with that is somewhat already late in the process, but it is still completely fine for us. That sometimes just showing the changes, what needs to be done to express what needs to be solved, right? So take it case by case basis.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put that link on the hackathon page as well, with the GitLab issue tracker and issues accepting. We have a master issue where we track all the merge requests, and we also have some easy, some labeled issues to begin with for people. So make sure that it's surfaced there as well. There is a question from Benson. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading right now. So
let me just repeat it for the stream. How are these issues found? The test case removal seems like something that would remain and seems difficult for a user to motivate, as it would not use many tools.
Yeah, so the first part, the issue was found by the Debian community, actually. So Debian, the Debian project, which is a specific flavor of Linux, actually packages GitLab Runner for us, and they run their tests, their own tests, and package GitLab Runner in their own way. And they actually run their CI, so they run our tests on a 32-bit system, and that's how that issue is found. They filed an issue on our issue tracker. We saw that issue, and then we said, okay, we'll solve this when we have time, or we marked it as accepting merge requests, right? Now, the second part of your answer, removal seems like something that would remain and seem difficult for a user to motivate. So I'm not sure I understand your question, but what I think you are saying is removing test cases might not be what users might want to do, right? And that is completely fine. I think there are multiple aspects of the project that can motivate you to work. Some people enjoy fixing the tests. Some people enjoy adding new features. Some people enjoy updating documentation. So I think we have everything. We cover every aspect that you're interested in. If I'm misunderstanding your question, please tell me, and I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you all. Thank you all for participating. Thank you, Steve. Hi, Darren, as well. Thank you all for coming. We've already updated the website with the recording in case that people want to see it retrospectively. Steve, any last words?
Just if you have any open merge, if you're planning to open any merge requests, feel free to ping me so we can try and get it merged in for the hackathon.
Thank you so much. And again, if you have any wider questions, you can find all of us on the Gitter channel on GitLab. So gitters.im/gitlab/community. So feel free to join us there. You can find all the necessary information on the hackathon page. And for the people who are going to join the next session, the release stage tutorial that is coming up in 10 minutes. See you soon. For the rest, happy hacking. Bye, you all.